Did OU get its starting shortstop in the transfer portal? Potentially, they get a really good player, Ailana Agnayani, the latest transfer portal addition for OU softball. Now, what stands out immediately about Ailana Agbayani, at least to me, pure hitter. 424 average last season, which actually would have been the highest for OU a year ago. It's pretty significant, right? We're talking about a 424 average in a conference that had some really good pitchers. Oklahoma, of course, had great pitchers. Texas had great pitchers. Baylor had great pitchers. Oklahoma State had great pitchers. So this wasn't a 424 average in a mediocre conference. It's a 424 average for Agbayani in one of the best conferences in all of college softball. And hey, those numbers are great, but her numbers were best when she was playing the best. Remember when she came to Oklahoma in the middle of the season and she had career highs against OU. She had career highs in both hits and doubles. One game she goes 4 for 5. Game 2 she goes 4 for 5. And then game 3 she goes 2 for 3. Now, I don't know how many of you recall that series, but of course OU got beat on that Saturday game against BYU, mostly because Ailana Agbayani goes 4 for 5 against the Sooners. But I remember it gets to Sunday and it's like, get out of town, Agbayani. I respect your game. You're a really good player. But I wanted her to leave town as quickly as possible because it felt like every single time she was coming up to the plate, especially game 2 and game 3, she was coming up with the hit and she was coming up with the big hit. So now that she's a part of your team, it's really exciting to think about. I mean, one of the best pure hitters the conference had to offer this year. 424 average, 5 home runs, 33 RBIs. She had 70 hits last season as a sophomore. This isn't someone that's been playing college softball for 3-4 years, anything like that. I mean, you're going to get her for 2 years, and in her sophomore year had 70 hits last year in the Big 12. And so many stats stick out to me of how good of a player she was a year ago, but maybe more than the 424 average, more than the 33 RBIs, more than the 70 hits. Here's the stat that I probably liked the most from her from last season. 165 at-bats, just 7 strikeouts. 7 strikeouts and 165 at-bats. And again, I'll just kind of repeat what I said. The pitching in this conference was really good this year. It was really good. And to only strike out 7 times in 165 at-bats. And BYU did play Texas. BYU did play Oklahoma. They played the best that the conference had to offer. And still, you don't really strike her out. Like, she's going to walk, she's going to put the ball in play, she's going to make something happen. So just from a pure hitter standpoint, I think that's what stands out to me the most. Shortstop, of course, right-handed pitcher as well, 2 years of eligibility left, native of Hawaii, Gatorade Player of the Year coming out of high school in Hawaii. I think she's kind of from around the same area that Dylan Gabriel's from as well. But some of you got the tease in the last video. I said a Big 12 player could be on the horizon who had a really good series against Oklahoma, and that's who it is. Agbayani was fantastic. 4 for 5 for game 2 and 2 for 3 game 3 against OU. So it's ready to get her out of town. Now we welcome her in town. And how about the commitment photos, not only for her, but for these other commits? Have you guys seen these? Like, look at this. Like, what kind of recruiting pitch is that for Patty Gasso and crew? Hey, look at this. Like, you're surrounded by all these trophies, the best softball facility in the country. It's insane what they've been doing with these commitment photos. I think it's been really, really cool. Her dad is former big leaguer Benny Agbayani, which growing up as a Braves fan in the 90s, I remember Benny Agbayani. He played for the New York Mets for a bit. Her mom was a fantastic athlete as well, so she just comes from a family of great athletes. Her sister's a really good player as well. Really, really excited about this. Really, really excited. And I can't emphasize enough just the 7 strikeouts and 165 at-bats. And the fact that she would have had the highest average on the team last year for OU, hitting well over 400. But you kind of look at things now for OU and, you know, you've gotten 3 commits. You still got 2 left. I'll get to the latest on Nigeri Kennedy. But I think already OU can have one heck of a case for the best transfer portal haul in college softball. I mean, again, just to kind of recap it, you get North Carolina's best player who had, Isabella Emmerling had one of the best seasons in North Carolina softball history. Okay. You get the Pac-12 hitting champ, and then you get one of the best pure hitters in the Big 12 from last year. Now, I know Oklahoma State's had a good portal class, and some others have had a good portal class as well. But OU's not done adding players. I think that they're going to get 2 more. But they're only adding high-level talents. And as it stands right now, when you kind of look what Oklahoma has, I think that you can already make one heck of a case that they do have the best portal class in all of college softball this offseason. And if they add an Agnayani candidate, if they add another really good position player, then I think it's without a doubt that's going to be the case. So I heard a lot of panic and a lot of freak out. Florida's better. Texas is better. Let's wait and see on that, because I think a lot of people's opinions could change on that pretty quick. I think Florida's going to be really good next year. I think Texas is going to be the most talented Texas team probably of all time. But Oklahoma's going to have the number 1 recruiting class coming in. I think by the time it's all said and done, Oklahoma's going to have the number 1 portal class. And you look at some of the numbers from players coming back from this year's World Series team. If they're not the most talented team, I think they're at worst going to be number 3. And I would tend to think that by the time it's all said and done, they would maybe have still the most talented roster in all of college softball. I just think that they're in a good spot. But, man, you add a pure hitter right here. You add someone that you can plug and play immediately. How much is she going to pitch next year? Because I brought up that she's a right-handed pitcher. I don't know how much that's really in the plans. Her numbers from a year ago, 5-2 on the season, 5.7 ERA, 1 save. I think she started 2 games for BYU last year. I wouldn't expect to see a ton of her in the circle. Maybe in kind of emergency situations. Certain games, maybe you're up big, she gets to pitch. But I'm not going to guess right now that she's going to be in the circle next year when you're playing your biggest games. But she can provide some depth there. I mean, she's at least an arm that you have if you need one next year, and she's got experience. But I think when you're talking about Agbayani, when you're talking about adding her, I think that she's probably your starting shortstop next year. And if not your starting shortstop, she's starting somewhere on the infield. And that's a hitter next year that's right there at the top of the order. I don't expect her to hit 20 home runs. Don't need her to hit 20 home runs. She hits well over 400 like she did this year. She's going to be just fine. So I think you can't be anything but really happy about this addition. Really happy with what OU's done so far in the portal. And on the Agnayani candidate front, I haven't heard anything, but still a lot of confidence on OU side of things. I'm not guaranteeing you that she's going to commit. I can just tell you that for the past few days, the confidence level has been OU feels really good about where they're at with Agnayani candidate. If you add her, it's clearly a difference maker. I mean, you're adding the reigning National Player of the Year. I like Kirsten Deal. I like Peyton Monticelli. I feel like I have to say that because if I talk and say really great things about Agnayani candidate, some people are like, whoa, you don't like Kirsten Deal? I like every pitcher that they have on the staff. Like, we saw it last year. But you'd be adding the reigning National Player of the Year. I mean, it'd be a big deal, be a huge deal. And as much as I like the 3 players that they already have committed via the portal, none of those players were National Player of the Year. She was. So it'd be the biggest portal, get that you could have already so far in the transfer portal. But the vibes, the attitude, the feeling from OU seems to be very high. And I don't think that this is going to last 2 more weeks. I think we said initially that this might take a bit throughout this process. And we're about a week and a half in now since we first, really heard of her officially entering the transfer portal. I think this could get wrapped up in a week, maybe a week and a half, but this is going to be another month-long process. Sounds like OU is in a pretty good spot, really good spot for Agnayani candidate. Haven't heard much on Riley Holtorf. I think she visited weekend before last with Abby Dayton, who you got just a couple of days ago. So I don't know how this impacts her situation because I think she's Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year as a shortstop. So does this mean that you're out on Riley Holtorf? Maybe, but if that's the case, I think you're really happy with Agbayani, a pure hitter and one that you're really, really excited about. Hey, I want to thank all of you for liking and subscribing. 1,000 subscribers just happened last night. Now, I'm not in this for the money. I'm not in it for the money, but it is nice to get paid. So I just wanted to give a heartfelt thank you for liking, subscribing, watching all the videos. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Some really cool OU softball content coming your way via the transfer portal. And I know the video the other day was a little bit echoey. I couldn't help that. Maybe today's video was very windy. I'm sure there's going to be some wind in the background. So not the best production, but I still appreciate you guys watching and coming to hear what I have to say about Ailana Agnayani, who really, really excited about. Of course, you don't get no scrubs. Oh, you don't get no scrubs via the transfer portal. Only big-time players, and they got another one. Appreciate you guys, as always. God bless you. Be kind to a stranger, unless they're a Texas fan. Talk to you later this week.